Johanna Dahlman today here. She is a yoga instructor and she also teaches Pilates. She works with Fortune 100 companies, helping them deal with stress. And she also reversed her own autoimmune disease through healthy lifestyle. So thank you so much for being on with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure.
Thanks. So let's just get started on where you're located and how you began your journey as working in the health and wellness field and helping companies.
So what had happened is I'm currently located in Europe. So as we're in lockdown, you're in the U.S. and I'm here in the Netherlands currently, and I've been here now for the past 3 years. And what had happened was back into probably 4 or 5 years ago, what had happened was I was in transition. I was moving from Florida to Colorado, and from Colorado to the Netherlands. It all happened within 12 months, these two big moves. And during this time, alopecia had come about. And since it started in the back of my head, I couldn't see this myself. My actual hairdresser pointed it out to me. And then I'm originally from California. So then when I went home to visit family, I went to my normal hairdresser there and he pointed it out and he even diagnosed me and he said, "You have alopecia, Johanna. You need to go get this taken care of." And so I'm in his chair and I'm taking my phone and I'm Googling what alopecia is because I have never had heard of this word before. And I start crying and, I'm in the hair salon and everyone is, trying to understand why I'm crying. And it was a big shock to me because I considered myself always to be extremely healthy, always to be extremely fit and active. And and when I say always, I probably mean from mid 20s throughout the rest of my life until till till today, right? That I'm still alive. And right as I left Florida, I had just finished, doing personal training. I was doing yoga, I was doing Pilates, I was doing all these things. And physically, I thought I was at the top of my fitness level, but clearly internally something was off, something was not in balance. And so alopecia came about, and so that's when my journey started. I started figuring out what was going wrong because I didn't understand if I was at a certain weight, if I was fit, if I had good muscle tone, if I had clear skin and no other issues, why is it that alopecia came about? And so through my research, through uh, deep research, I started using myself as a guinea pig and I started trying different methodologies. I looked into traditional Chinese medicine. I looked into acupuncture. I looked into Ayurveda. I looked into so many different types and modalities of health and wellness. And once I pieced this all together, it took me about 2.5 years. And then I finally saw hair growth coming in. I saw some relief from the digestive issues, from the dry skin, from the dry eyes, from the brain fog, from the fatigue, from all these other symptoms that seemed to me in the beginning like unrelated, like completely separate. But in reality, they're all connected. And so, because of this, I started seeing relief. I started seeing more hair growth, and I was like, okay, I'm onto something. And by this point, I had already seen doctors in Europe. I had seen doctors in Colorado. I had seen doctors in California, and no one really could help me. I had to do this on my own because the prescriptions or the cortisone shots or the creams that they wanted to prescribe me didn't help. They weren't long-term solutions. They were just short-term band-aids. And so once I got on this journey and I saw relief and I saw full hair growth and, healing in me, I knew other people needed to know. I knew other people needed to understand that this was possible for themselves to take control of, for themselves to heal without waiting for a dermatologist appointment, without waiting to go see the endocrinologist, without waiting for another doctor to say, sorry, we can't help you, get some Rogaine and call it a day. That's not the solution. And I'm very happy that I've been able to attain this, and not only attain this for myself, but then also repeat it in various clients who have different types of alopecia. Because alopecia, I mean, it's just like it's essentially, I like to describe it kind of like cancer. It has different levels and there's different types. And so there's different types of alopecia and there's different levels of it. And so you want to understand exactly what these types, what the boundaries are, what it entails, what it doesn't entail, but then also see what's possible and what's not possible. And for many people who have different types of alopecia where they're like, oh, sorry, you're bald. That's it. No more help for you. Oh, sorry, you have female pattern baldness. No more help for you. I see results with my program with these clients who have these different types of alopecia. And in 2 months, they're already seeing hair growth. So it really, what I believe is that we need to support our bodies. We need to support our bodies with true health, with true diet and lifestyle. And for someone with alopecia, with an autoimmune disease that looks very different than what maybe you're used to eating or what somebody else who has no autoimmune disease is used to eating. Healthy for you is very different in terms of alopecia and what is healthy for them, because their system is a little more delicate, right? And so because of this, you have to be cognizant of these things and you have to like guide them. And so even my program helps parents who have children going through alopecia, because that's also very new for them. Being the parent, you think you're doing all these things well, you think you're feeding your children the right things, and then lo and behold, maybe what you're feeding them or maybe how you're living is affecting them and making it worse, and you don't know. So these are all, I mean, I had to unlearn what health looked like and then relearn it again, which is a process because no one is talking to us. No one is teaching us in schools or, the government. No one is teaching us what true health really looks like. There's just so many different, wide varieties of diets, of diet books. It's confusing even just to lose weight. I mean, imagine trying to heal an autoimmune disease. It makes it even more complicated.
That's so true. And thank you for sharing your story, your journey, and how you get there from there. And so you're so right about how what's covered in school and what's covered in the textbooks compared to what's reality, what people are going through individual cases. So with the alopecia, and you mentioned a few, symptoms, and there's no like really known cause, right? I mean, I knew I read about it in the textbooks and everything, but I've never met anybody who has had it before. So it's how do I say this? It's autoimmune, so it could be basically, it could be your diet, your lifestyle, or something triggered it, right? It could be a gene that's just sitting there dormant, not doing anything. Could it be, different
So
reasons?
correct. So part of the fact that I got alopecia instead of lupus or diabetes or rheumatoid arthritis is definitely the gene aspect. But through diet and lifestyle, you're able to tame it and put it to sleep. So for example, we all have cancer cells in our body, but we don't all have cancer, right? And so we can control the fate of our health and the fate of our future by ensuring that we have a correct diet and lifestyle. And when I start to look at how I grew up in California, I grew up on the standard American diet. I grew up, in college like anyone else, eating fast food, staying up late, cramming for tasks. And if I were to start looking like from inception, from inception or from when my parents conceived up until the time that I got alopecia, I can see a lot of red flags. And so a lot of times it's not one thing. What I like to say is that alopecia, and probably for most autoimmune diseases, it's a bunch of puzzle pieces. And all these puzzle pieces come together. And once you start tweaking and improving each one, then they all start functioning better together. And so for you, it might be 2 to 3 things that are going on. And for me, it might be, 5 to 10 things, but they're all puzzle pieces that we need to address. And so if you address all of them, you're going to see improvement in health in all areas.
That's so true. And so how do one find like the right combination to piece them together for it to work?
So this is why I have a 2-month program. So because when you personally have the autoimmune disease, you can have various symptoms. And some of my symptoms was the fatigue, the brain fog, and also not like having memory loss. I was having like short-term memory loss, not necessarily like losing my keys, but let's say I was on a task and I was working from home, and then all of a sudden, I open up a new browser and I'm like, why did I open up this new browser? There was something I needed to do. And it's just, it just like slipped my mind. So it was that type of thing where I couldn't recall why I was going to the kitchen or why I was, there was something there. I just couldn't figure it out. And
Mhm.
so little things like this where I started to notice I became more forgetful. Let's say if I were to have like a grocery list, I wouldn't be able to memorize the 10 things normally as I would used to. And so this has improved. Everything has improved and has either gone away completely. But these are things that I noticed that were out of character for me. And so when you're going through this, and let's say you're my client and I'm walking you through this 2-month program, I walk you through this in bite-sized pieces because it's very easy to get overwhelmed. It's very easy to um, to be that deer in the headlights where you're just paralyzed with so much information or so much things that you think that you need to do or that that you need to do. And so I break this down week by week, and this is also fantastic for parents so they're also not overwhelmed with what they need to do for their child, so that they can follow along week by week and see results as they go. And this way, no one is overwhelmed. It's all bite-sized pieces. The homework and the challenges are all very easily done within the week. And because I have clients in all different time zones, I start, let's say, on a Saturday of the week, and then they have all week to do it. It's not like on Saturday they have to participate. They can participate Sunday or Monday or whatever day and time is that's available to them, because we all have busy lives. We have work from home, we have, tutoring, we have this, we have that. And so I try to bring this down bite-sized pieces and walk them through it, holding their hand, because no one could hold my hand, but this is also why I took 2 years and a half to heal. And so
Mhm.
instead of my clients, seeing results in 2 years or 3 years, they're seeing it in less than 2 months. And so then
Wow.
from there, they're already feeling relief. They're already feeling relief of the brain fog, the fatigue, the digestive issues. They already on this fast track. And then from there, all they need to do is just keep going. So it's
That's
like once I've already boosted you, you can already keep going. And it's easy to maintain that.
That's awesome. And so stress level has something definitely to do with that,
Oh, yeah.
right? Have you had like relapse or something during the time since you recovered?
Stress levels definitely plays a part. I think, and this is something that I actually talk about. I'm a professional speaker as well, and so I talk to corporate clients, and when I go to their organizations or to their companies, and also to entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs as well see a big stress in the beginning of their startup phase. And so stress is something that is not only linked to autoimmune disease, but it's also linked to heart disease, cancer, diabetes, to a lot of things that we have, whether that's acid reflux or whether that's maybe insomnia or heartburn. All these things is our bodies speaking to us, telling us that it's stress. But yet, what happens is that us humans, we like to ignore these symptoms. We like to ignore these things, and so we'll take the over the counter medicine for the stomach ache or for the heartburn, or blaming it on the fast food or blaming it on the I don't know, the beer or something that we drank, when in reality, it's the stress, the migraines, the headaches. All these things are all related to stress. 90% of doctor's visits are related and correlated to stress. And so this is something that we're not really looking at. No one is teaching us stress management. No one is talking about it. And then lo and behold, what do we have? We have burnout. And it's not just happening in the corporate world, but it's also happening for high schoolers and kids in college as well. They're seeing burnout, they're seeing mental health issues, they're seeing depression, anxiety, because the pressures of graduating at the top of your class, graduating, at a certain level and getting into the certain schools, and all these pressures, whether it's from family, society, or around your peers. This is a lot to take on. And in the US, it's very, this culture of succeeding is very strong, much stronger than what I would see in Europe. In Europe, they have a more relaxed way of life. It's like do your best and everyone gets a gold star. A lot of times they're not even graded in elementary school until a certain age. And so the process of growing up here is much more easygoing versus in the US. In kindergarten, I remember having to take grades or tests, sorry, and exams to get to the next level to, you know, to succeed. You know, SATs were early, everything was early. And then on top of it, you're bombarded with all these extracurricular activities. And so, and of course, you're forced to excel. And I'm sure you can understand, you're nodding your head. And I
Mhm.
think we all go through this if you're a product of the US of some
Oh,
sort.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. And then in China too, I grew up in China, and then I kind of did like half and half of schooling, at least, before I moved on to college and other programs. But it is intense, and we're pressured to really study, study, study. And I agree with you. I've seen articles. I haven't really, studied abroad or anything, but in terms of Europe, but I've definitely seen articles of places where like even the work days are different,
Oh yeah.
and it is a big difference.
There is, and Chinese parents are notorious for this. You know, they want their kids to excel. There's a lot of pressure from early on. Yeah, definitely.
Totally. And stress, speaking of stress management and mindset, has a lot to do, like mindset go hand in hand because depending on how you deal with stress and also with any diagnosis, like how you handle it mentally. Are you like you do the research, right? And then you look at the prognosis of like the statistics, and then you're gonna either really fall for the statistics or you're going to be like, okay, I have my own mindset, I know what I need to do, and I can basically have like be positive and be able to change it rather than just go with along with whatever they're saying.
Well, you definitely have to take action. And I think that, you know, if you were to Google stress management, I think it would be just very superficial solutions in terms of really focusing and dealing with your stress. Because by the time you get to that point, you've already probably had the burnout, or you probably are at a crippling stage where, you know, you might be diagnosed with something and you're like, I need to really, you know, get to the root of this. And potentially, you know, when we say stress, more than likely it's chronic. It's already turned chronic. It's more than 10 years. It's more than 15 years. You know, if I can look back, yeah, you know, during my college time or even during high school, there was constant stress in me. You know, whether this was for school, whether this was, you know, family, whether this was just pressures in general, or it was just constant. And so it only gets worse as you become an adult. It doesn't get better. So this
For
is
sure.
why we need stress management to be
Mhm.
implemented early on. We need to be teaching our children this, whether it's at the home or whether you know, it's in school, but this needs to be part of the curriculum because these are tools for life. Like our society is so modern that the way of life that it was 50, 60 years ago is no more. That's not going to ever, you know, go back in time. That's not going to be possible. So only things are going to be more advanced. There's only going to be more pressure, more technology, more this, more that. And due to that, I firmly believe that if we don't have a strong basic foundation of what health looks like and trying to maintain that, then we're not going to be able to thrive or survive.
That's so true. I can't agree more. It's definitely 100%. I agree with you. Speaking of the foundation of things, and I know you implemented yoga, Pilates, healthy nutrition. So, what are some of the specific things that you did to help you just recover? And I know everybody's different, but just from your perspective, like what you did for yourself.
So for me, and then also in my program, we evaluate everything. So your medical history has a lot to say. You know, there's a lot there. So that's one thing I like to evaluate. I've had people who come into my program who are nutritionists, who are personal trainers, and they have hair loss issues. And so, regardless of what your education background is or how in depth you are in one area or another, there's always room for improvement and there's always room to unlearn to relearn because even though you might have, you know, the 8 pack or the 6 pack, like I have with clients, they still see issues with hair loss and different ages, different demographics, but still, you know, they all see the results once they go through this. So we evaluate first the past history. From there, you evaluate the current. And then we also start tweaking. We tweak diet, we tweak lifestyle. And for everybody, lifestyle looks a little bit different, right? Because the stay at home mom with 2 kids, 3 kids is very different than maybe the guy who's working hard and who has like a very powered corporate job. Or maybe, you know, the person who lives in Australia is very different from the person who lives in the UK, and that lifestyle is also very different. Even just the weather pattern is different. And so all these things are taken into consideration because it's all, you need to consider everything. And the way I started figuring out what I needed is I started evaluating like the changes. I started evaluating, okay, well, if I was so healthy in Miami prior to moving, what was going on, you know, during this time. And so you start evaluating, okay, and yes, that's a big portion of it, but then also the past has a lot to that. So for example, I started doing Pilates when I was about 23, 24, and I incorporated yoga starting probably at 30, 32, 33. And, you know, I was doing it very regularly. And then later on, I got certified in both. But then at the same time, even though I was very, you know, focused and driven and doing Pilates and doing yoga and doing these other things and having a clean diet, that still doesn't outweigh the first 25 years of not on being the standard American diet, on being on the standard Western diet and lifestyle, right? And so maybe the 10, 15 years after are very healthy, but it's not enough. You know, it's almost kind of like the person who's been smoking for 20 years and then all of a sudden quits. And then, you know, they're doing, you know, triathlons and they're, you know, eating right and everything. But guess what? You've already had 20 years of smoking. There's no way you can like negate that. You can do better for sure, but you still have that part of your resume, so to speak, right? And so because of that, sure, the damage is somewhat done, but, and granted, you know, I like to stay optimistic and positive. You can always improve, but it doesn't necessarily outweigh the other time that you've already spent, you know, having this certain diet and lifestyle. And so this is where the tricky part comes, because when you start understanding, okay, what weighs more, 25 years or 15 years or 10 years and 25 years, you know, then you start to see, oh, snaps, you know, I had 25 years of not being on a good healthy plan, and then maybe thinking I was healthy and not really, and so this is what happened and this is what led me here, right? Because that's how it happens.
Yeah, just it's true. And how it is, well, a way to look at it is, okay, so that's done already, and I know I shouldn't be continue doing that. My lifestyle has changed, and of course, you know, not go back to it. So kind of just leave that behind and says, and say, okay, I've done that already. I'm gonna just give myself grace and not be too harsh on myself, and that could prevent you from moving forward as well. And just say, basically, leave the past behind, and I'm just gonna focus on being healthy and continue, you know, moving forward, living a healthy lifestyle.
That's what I say to my clients, that if you want to put alopecia to sleep, it's not just, you know, be good and be on your best behavior for these 2 months. It's these 2 months plus the rest of your life. Because this way, I mean, as you see me, you know, I have over 5 years of being alopecia free. My hair's back to normal. I have full hair growth. My eyebrows grew back, you know, the receding hairline, the eyelashes are super long. Like, I have no problem with hair anymore, thankfully. But at the same time, you know, keeping my health to a certain level is kind of like investing in my retirement fund. You have to do it on a daily basis. You need to do it consciously and being very aware, you know, because you vote essentially for your health with each spoonful of food. With every decision you make, you're either creating health or creating disease. That's the reality of it. And so, you know, if I had a teacher back in the day who would like explain this to me in very black and white situations, there would be no way I would be doing McDonald's runs, you know, at the middle of the night in my 20s. There would be no way. You know what I mean? It's just, I would be avoiding that. I would come prepared with like nuts and some sort of trail mix in my car. But that didn't happen until later on in life. And so this is the problem. This is the problem.
Yeah, I can totally relate. And actually, when we first came on, I know you shared with me that you had autoimmune disease, but you didn't specifically say what it was. And when you first started, I was just going to say how nice your hair looks.
Oh,
and
yeah, it was alopecia.
And also another thing is, even with just for me, it's really hard for me to find like good product for hair, because after I use it for a while, I just like get my hair really dry and just like, not just like grassy and not really, smooth, and a lot of hair loss just from not using really like natural products. And of course the diet too, like if I don't eat healthy, then you can really see the difference and hormone changes and everything.
It could also be water. I mean, there's just so much pollutants. There's so many toxins and chemicals in our environment, especially in the U.S., where I mean, it's not just the food, but it's when I say lifestyle, I mean, I start looking at the water. I start looking at, everything that's in contact with you, your body on a daily basis. Because if you're drinking tap water, there's probably something wrong with that. In the U.S., you probably understand me. We just don't drink the tap water, but here in the Netherlands, you drink the tap water, and it's like the cleanest water ever. And
Mm.
I didn't believe them for the first like 2 years that I lived here, and so I would only drink bottled water. And then they
Mm.
looked at me like, "Oh, you're the crazy American who drinks bottled water." But then when I
Wow.
started doing my research, I realized that the Netherlands is so highly rated in terms of good, clean source of water. And I was thinking to myself, what an amazing country that, the basics of clean water is available to all the people out of the tap, for free essentially. Whereas in the US, we're still struggling with that.
I,
USA Today had an article a couple months ago talking about all the chemicals and toxins per state, and they narrowed it down per county. And California, where I'm from, or in Florida where I was living, or even in Texas and in Colorado where I used to live as well, they all have horrible water quality. I don't know how it is in New Jersey, but I do know that in DC they had a situation like Flint, Michigan had, what, like 5 6 years ago. So this situation is still going on, and nothing is really being done about it. And so this is the disappointing thing. And so it makes it more expensive to be healthy in the US.
yeah, totally. Especially the water here. Sometimes it is for us. I mean, New Jersey, and it's really hard. The water is just terrible. And of course, we don't have the resources to basically filter the water for our showers and everything. I mean, we have water filtration for what we're drinking, but that's pretty much it in terms of like getting healthy, fresh water, not like, from the faucet and everything. It's really disgusting.
I actually found so because we have hard water here too, and hard water is probably one of the biggest culprits to having dry, greasy, gross hair. There's one water filtration system that I found. It's a company called Water Sticks out of California. I actually have a coupon code on my website for anyone who wants to get it. They ship internationally, so I actually got my shipment in 1 week, which even during COVID was amazing. And it comes with a filter. It's big, and you regenerate it with salt. So it's super easy to regenerate, and it lasts for 10 years. They even make this water filtration system for your shower, for RVs, or for travel. But this one especially, I love it, and I wish I would have bought it earlier or sooner, because the hard water did a number on my hair. It felt like a broom. It was so dry and straw-like. It was awful. But now, as you can see, it's nice, soft, and it's like back to normal.
No, wow. That's great to know. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So let's jump into your routine a little bit. So how do you start your day, and then how do you, end the day, like your to-dos and your non-negotiables?
To-dos and non-negotiables. Well, here, depending, because it rains a lot here, depending on the weather, I get to go outside. If it's rainy and cold, I want to stay in. As you can see, I'm wearing a sweatshirt, and outside it was raining today all day, so I only went out to go grocery shopping, and that was it. So non-negotiable is I need to eat.
Mm. Mhm.
But in terms of exercise, I actually did yoga today inside my house because um, because of the lockdown, gyms and studios are still open, but I'm still a little hesitant to go into the gym, into the Pilates studios, or into yoga studios right now. And so I actually just do my practice at home. I'm yoga certified, I'm Pilates certified, and I actually enjoy grabbing a YouTube video and just doing it at home. This way there's no excuse.
Right.
About COVID or rainy day or whatever. But normally when it's nice out, I like to go outside and take a bike ride. The Netherlands is actually has such well-designed bike lanes for everybody around the whole country. So the whole country actually connects via bike lanes, and it's
Oh,
amazing. And so you can bike for miles and miles and miles, and you're in beautiful landscapes. And so I like to do that when possible, when the weather permits. And if not, I'm indoors doing Pilates or yoga of some sort. And then how I start my day with some hot water and lemon. I also love herbal teas. I love matcha. I'm a huge fan
mm,
of matcha lattes. Um, I plan to get hungry normally really quick. So within half an hour, I go have breakfast. And, like most people, I'm already, checking emails, checking in with my assistants and trying to see like what's going on for today. Normally I have my mornings free for me, for what I need to do, whether that's, appointments, or whether that's, um, you know, little things like taking my car in for an oil change or what have you. And then the rest of the afternoon is dedicated to clients. So this is when I have a lot of my coaching calls and sessions, or my consultations, or I check in with my clients in the afternoons. So it just depends. It varies. I'm very fortunate and lucky to make my own schedule, but healthy food is a requirement every day.
mm.
Supplements every day. Some sort of movement every day. I also like to indulge and take naps. So I'm a huge promoter of taking naps. If you can sleep, try to sleep a little bit more, because I'm sure we could all use a little more sleep.
Yeah, definitely. I like that. It's really great that you can have your own schedule and just basically plan that out. So you said the gyms and studios are open during the whole entire time, or just recently
No,
open?
they just opened July 1st. They just opened July 1st. But me personally, I'm still hesitant. I was actually teaching at a studio before COVID. I no longer teach right now. But at the studios, even right before COVID, people were coming in feeling sick, and having fever and this type of thing, and thinking that exercise, they would be able to sweat it out or to get rid of it. And I looked at them pretty upset, saying like, what are you doing here? You shouldn't be here. If you're sick, you should go home and rest. Wait until you're done being sick. And so I think this is also a culture difference, where maybe sometimes, people in the Netherlands think it's okay to sweat it out. They have a big culture of saunas and of going to the spas. And so during winter, it's very common to see people who are sick, and they're in the sauna or they're in the steam room, and they're hacking and coughing and, trying to get it out. But on a hygiene level, I don't think this is hygienic. I don't think this is the way to do it. And so I try to stay away. If I see someone who's like, visually sick, or who I could hear is sick, I try to stay away from them in general, not just because of COVID, but just in general because of my own well-being. And so, right before COVID, when we closed the studio, the same thing was happening. People were coming in and they were sick, and it's just like, what are you doing here? You shouldn't be here. You should go home and rest.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So true. Just have to be, people need to be more aware of these things.
They need to be cognizant of their surroundings. It's not just them and their sickness, it's other people too, especially when you're in a small studio, or in a studio where, potentially, because it is so cold outside, all the windows and doors are closed. And so, it transmits, everything transmits, even if it's just the regular common cold, it transmits easily. And so it's best to stay home and do your practice at home, at least for now.
Right. Especially if somebody doesn't have a really strong immune system, and that could really impact them.
Which is huge for alopecia, because when you do have an autoimmune disease, more than likely, depending on the autoimmune disease, your immune system is already suppressed. And so now during COVID, especially if you're taking the cortisone shots, or if you're taking the creams or any type of steroids, this suppresses your immune system more, which makes it more likely to catch COVID, to catch a cold, to catch flu, to catch anything else that's viral and bacterial. And so you want to protect yourself even more. And so during this time of COVID, it's even more important for people with an autoimmune disease to be very vigilant about their health. And even though I no longer display the symptoms of alopecia, nor do I have an autoimmune disease, but it's just like those cancer cells, right? They're there, they're dormant, they're sleeping. And so if I, you know, my grandma likes to say, if you put your hand in fire, you're going to get burned. So I try not to, test the limits so much. It's all about protecting yourself. And this is why you sleep and you eat well and you rest and you take supplements and you get outside and you do some exercise and these types of things. But with an autoimmune disease, I think it's just kind of like you need to be a little more vigilant.
Right, definitely. And especially just be more cautious. And I was just going to say what you just said.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So how can people reach you?
So I have my website, alopiciaangel.com. And there I have free downloads. I have my blog, which has over 100 articles on alopecia. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, YouTube, and Pinterest. I have my newsletter that you can subscribe on to my blog as well. And I also offer free consultations. So you can email me through the website, and I'm happy to offer your listeners a free consultation.
Okay, awesome. Great. I'll list all those links in the description. And I also, like, if you subscribe to my channel on yogacises.com, you also can get this recording in advance before it's officially published publicly. So if you want to get early access to these interviews, you can do that as well.
Excellent.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Pan. So much pleasure, and I'm so grateful for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right.